Hello, you beautiful souls, you movers, you shakers, you visionary makers. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Under One Sky, where we see solutions, hear humanity, and feel the future. Life discussions to create better communities. I'm your host, Sky Sheridan, and tonight I have a very special guest, someone I've known most of my life and possibly longer, someone who has been with me through all the projects that I've been creating for the last decade and has been very instrumental in her own community, family, and faith in building solutions and creating community. Beth Soelberg, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I am really glad to be here.
It's so nice to be
It's
doing
going to be
this.
great.
This experiment, right? Like this, we've been talking about this for so long. And actually, I'll be talking to Rachel on Sunday, who's going to be helping produce the show. And we're just going to be super transparent on this journey together and talk about how like it is for a novice to go into podcasting. Beth, tell us more about yourself. Like you have so-and-so a family, obviously. And
I do.
What makes you tick? What gets your gander going?
Why don't you just answer that? You probably know better than I do. I love music. I love the numinous. I love science. Although regrettably, I have very little science education. I love the magic. My faith is a big part of my life. That's important to me. I think everything in the whole world can always be improved, including myself and everything else we're involved in. I love my family. I'm married to Dan. Y'all gonna hear a lot about him. He might even be on an episode.
He sure will.
And
I hope so.
He's like, what are we, Wonder Woman, except a man, Superman. He kind of is able to solve almost any problem that is not emotional. He can solve any problem. Yeah. And I have 3 kids who are a daughter who's 17 and a son who's 15 and a daughter who is 12. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A little bit about myself really quickly. I have had, if some of you don't know, I've had a really long history with family craziness, as some people have had. My mother died of AIDS when I was 14. Beth was there with me when that happened. My grandmother died when I was 16 or 17. I can't remember.
I think you were 17.
17, probably, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and they were really my last living relatives, as I had known at the time. Of course, later on in life, Beth being the genius genealogist.
I like that.
Thank you.
That's a great title. Stop.
Exactly, right. That we have discovered parts of my family, my father's side of the family, and kind of have been contacting in the last probably 7 years. So I have actually figured out where I come from my paternal side of the family. Mm-hmm. But I grew up in foster care, have had a very troubling upbringing, which has made me who I am, but has also been very difficult. But it has also given me a sense of like really what family, how important family is, and because it was missing so much. And so these people came into my life. They're called the Heaths, and Michelle and Andy Heath, and Alana and Brendan. A big shout out to them. Actually, Alana and her husband, my brother-in-law, will probably be in the show with How to Change the World, and Michelle with her book, because she's writing a book about Parkinson's disease. My father has Parkinson's now for 18 years. He is a cyborg because he's got like these implants in his brain to help him stop shaking from Parkinson's. But so this brings me, the long story short, what I was going to say is that you and I were riding in Michelle's car one time, and I remember this really distinctly. She had said, your relationship, you and Beth's relationship, is like something I've never known before, and it's something that's really special and unique, because you really do come from like 2 sides of the track. You have really, such different trajectories in life and different principles, right, the way you live your life and the different experiences that you've had. And yet you still are so committed to being connected, and something draws you together, like through time and space.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is. I couldn't put a name on it. It's just something that I just like instinctively feel through all this time. Yeah. I don't know if you have any words you want to say about that, or.
I don't know that there's a word, because I don't think it I don't think it's very common. And so maybe there's no word for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I agree.
Yeah.
To me, it's normal, but I guess I do remember that. Now that you bring that up, I remember, I think we were in Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah, you were riding the back seat. I
Yeah.
remember you were like peering
Yeah.
through the seat behind. I just, for some reason,
Yeah.
that memory stuck a lot with me because
Yeah.
Michelle really did sort of highlight, because the way she was talking about it, she was like, it's so crazy. I don't think I've ever seen a relationship like your relationship before. And she was like, I just really want to honor that and say like, bravo to you guys. Because, and really look at us, Beth. I mean, bravo to us. Like, we are incredibly, uniquely, distinctively different, right?
We are pretty much as different as two people can be, but not really. I mean, we do have a lot of things in common, but our trajectory or our path in life is extremely divergent.
Right. You'd think somebody who had 3 kids and a husband and who was active in the church and was doing all her things,
Right.
And who had a family that she
Right.
had to like help and support, would not have much time for some model traveling the world, going and doing his crazy nonsense and getting involved in all sorts of things that made no sense to you and that you couldn't even probably imagine. And the same for me. Like, I couldn't imagine what it was like to be home every day, like raising a child or having a husband or, so it's just funny that throughout the years, we've still totally understood each other without like no holds bar,
I don't know if it is some kind of like really great empathy or pre-existent connection from like some pre-mortal world or what. I think it goes both ways. You were busy, you were modeling, you were traveling all over, you were never in one place, for very long. That is completely different from, I spent years in my house, basically, when my kids were small. I was a stay-at-home mother, so I was with them all the time. Taking care of business at home is very different. And I would think you would not have time to talk to myself, who I kind of perceived as boring.
I mean, obviously, I introduced you saying basically like we've known each other since the pre-existence. And for those of you who don't know what the pre-existence is, Beth, would you like to explain? That's just
if you have seen the movie Soul, they talked about the great before. So that's something that I think we both believe in, that there was a great before. We lived before we came here, before we were born on Earth.
It's one of my favorite shows, like top 3.
Oof.
I think Contact being our number 1, obviously.
Contact is amazing.
Who is Carl Sagan, Beth? Tell us about Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan was a scientist, an educator, a humanitarian, a science communicator. He was kind of the first one, right? I mean, there have been others since, like now Neil deGrasse Tyson has sort of taken it upon himself to, take up the banner. And Carl Sagan was an author. He wrote nonfiction, fiction. He was the presenter of the show Cosmos, back in the 80s on PBS. That was very popular.
I remember. Can we discuss PBS? Public Broadcasting Station.
Yeah.
I was raised on that.
Me too.
What were some other shows on PBS? I remember it was Butterfly in the Sky.
Reading Rainbow. Yes,
Reading Rainbow was on PBS.
Reading
awesome.
Rainbow. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And 3-2-1 Contact, was that on PBS?
I wish
it had to be.
Listen, if we had Rachel on the show, and maybe I have to put a plug of 3-2-1, just because you mentioned that's going to have to go in. What do we call those on a podcast? We call them zingers.
A stinger.
Okay, first of all, 3-2-1 Contact should be like our theme song, if only. So
my word.
You were also raised by PBS? I don't really know. I mean, I know we love the same PBS shows, but
I watched a lot of PBS growing up, and my dad was kind of an early adopter of technology. So when cable was a thing, we got the wood paneled cable box with the push buttons, so you could choose your show. And the first like kids channel I remember was Nickelodeon, and it had a couple of stupid shows. Pinwheel. Do you Pinwheel?
Pinwheel spinning
around. Yeah. And I'm trying to think what else is on there. Where was Kids Incorporated? What channel was that on?
That was Nickelodeon.
Was it Nickelodeon? It could have been. Today's Special. How could I forget about Today's Special? Remember? With the mannequin? Yes.
Yes,
yep.
I do remember.
And that mouse.
Carl Sagan. So Carl Sagan was, I think is,